North Carolina, very famously in the news in the past week or so for having passed a ban on gay marriage by about 2-1 down there, and followed quickly by the President of the United States saying he favors same-sex marriage. As you note, we are talking about this because North Carolina is indeed a battleground state. And while it may be true that the ban on same-sex marriage in North Carolina passed by a 2-1 vote down there, you are suggesting that the outcome in November isn't going to be as clear-cut as it was on that amendment.
I think that if you look at the patterns in North Carolina, the coalition that pushed Barack Obama over the threshold in 2008 kind of splintered a little bit for this single issue vote on gay marriage, the constitutional amendment. You had the black voters and conservative Democrats who decided that they were going to support the amendment banning gay marriage. And it's not so clear when we get to a multi-issue election in November whether the social conservatism will win the day for those voters.
If I recollect, Mr. Obama carried North Carolina by about 1% over John McCain in 2008. Very close.
It was very close. It was, I think it was on the order of 14,000 votes out of a couple million cast.
But I believe he got well over 70% of the so-called youth vote, which would be, students at universities like Duke. And it could be argued that his announcement in favor of same-sex marriage the other day was, in fact, intended to animate those voters. In your experience down there, how animated generally are the students at universities like Duke over the upcoming election?
I think that you see a fair amount of animation among Duke students. The thing about Duke students and a lot of the university students in North Carolina is that they come from out of state. And so they may be quite likely to vote in November, but we get a lot of students who come to Duke from a place like New Jersey. And if their votes are counting up in New Jersey and not here, then clearly they can't sway the election here. If you look at the vote in this primary election that we had on Tuesday, the 18 to 22-year-old group, they did vote at higher rates than normal for that age group in a primary election, but it's still pretty low compared to your classic 65 and up older adults who came out in much larger numbers. So I would expect something like that to continue to be the case in November.
Jacob, I'd like to ask you a last question. As everyone says, the economy is the #1 issue in this election. I think most people are not aware that the unemployment rate in North Carolina is 10%. That's one of the highest in the nation. Do you think that the economy is going to trump matters like these social issues come November in a state like North Carolina?
I think that the economy is going to play very big in North Carolina come November. There are a lot of parts of the state that are struggling quite a bit. We have our traditional industries, furniture, textiles. Those have been taking hits for many years, but this recession in 2007 really has had a really remarkable toll on a lot of the smaller mill towns throughout the state. And that's the place where you saw these social issues come to the fore. But I think the economic issues will be sort of superseding them later in the year.
So do you think the voters who are voting against, or at least in favor of the constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage, are typically coming from the most economically difficult areas in the state?
Yeah, if you look, there are only 7, North Carolina has 100 counties, and only 7 of them voted against the gay marriage ban. And those 7 counties happen to be primarily areas that are doing pretty well economically. There would be the Research Triangle area, the Charlotte area, where you have some of these, new technology industries and finance driving the economy. It's in more of the rural and small town areas of North Carolina where you saw really strong support for this ban on gay marriage. And those are the places as well that are also struggling the most economically.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating, Jacob. We'll be keeping an eye on North Carolina. Thanks for being with us.